Who's ready for the September plant room update? Let's have a look at what's doing well and maybe not so well at the moment. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. Now, as I said, this is going to be the September update. Granted, it's getting filmed at the very end of August, not far after the previous update, but I need to film this before I head off on holiday at the beginning of September so that you can still get it at the beginning of September. So without further ado, I want to have a look at some plants that are doing really, really well at the moment in my collection, just to show you a bit of an update, and also maybe a few that could be doing better, yeah? Okay, let's dive into it. So the first plant I want us to have a look at together, and actually let me move away this propagation, which is Jose Bueno, because it's sitting on the table and it's kind of right in your view at the moment. Let me just do that. On the point of the Jose Bueno, I'll see if I can grab a picture or a video and show you what the newest leaf of the Jose Bueno is looking like now. And because I know myself too much, I just took a picture now so I could add it in when editing. But this is the plant I want to talk about. So the Monstera esqueleto. This is the coolest thing in the world, and it's still bringing me no end of joy. But as you can see, it's doing a lot better this year. It has finally found its stride, and to be fair, I do think that it's all because of the moss bowl. That's fine. I'm eating humble pie now. It's okay, it's okay. But it is working quite nicely. You should be able to see, if I can hide away, that right there is a root that has had finally attached itself to the moss pole. So the people that have been here for a while, they know that this plant was not attaching to the moss pole. It was doing the thing where it was on a moss pole and the roots, the aerial roots, were going in the opposite direction. Why? But at the moment I managed to repot it and kind of reposition the moss pole because it was small enough that I could still do that. If this was much larger, I wouldn't be able to do it. But yeah, I mean, this is still relatively juvenile, I guess, for an esqueleto. Like, the leaves aren't absolutely huge. The leaves on this can get absolutely ginormous. Interestingly enough, I have another plant which was originally given to me as a very, very long time ago as a variegated adansonii. And that one kind of managed to attach onto, I think I had it on a plank originally, and the leaves were getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I finally gave it its own moss pole. It's very difficult to move that one out from where it is now, but the leaves are actually not much smaller than this at this particular moment in time. So if you want the kind of esqueleto vibes for cheap, and you've got enough patience, potentially if you add an adansonii onto a moss pole, you will eventually get quite large and sizable leaves. I don't think this is news to anybody, but you know. But yeah, this is doing really, really well. There's obviously a new growth point that you can kind of see there. Is it sizing up? I guess. I mean, that was one of the first leaves, and the most recent leaf is that one, and it's still hardening off. I would say yes. Is this the fastest Monstera that I've got? Not even by a long shot. But I think I knew this. Based on what other people were saying, this is not one that's super fast. I think maybe it does get faster when it gets a bit bigger. I don't know. If you've got this and it's a relatively sizable plant by this point, let us all know. But do I think this definitely needs a moss pole? I would say not 100%. Like, you can probably get away with not giving this a moss pole, but if you really want those kind of bigger size leaves, I would suggest yes. And let me kind of talk you through my thought process with that one. These leaves are a lot thicker than the adansonii, and that is true, these are a lot thicker. It's almost slightly rubbery, almost a bit like the Syngonium chiapense. But also because of the size, I'd imagine it needs that extra support that the moss pole, where it can actually dig in, its aerial roots will give it. So yes, this one is doing really, really well. What do I have this in, just before anybody asks? This is in Plant Prescriptions Premium Soil Mix. And it's one of the last ones that's got it on here, not because I don't like that soil mix anymore, it's just more the fact that I'm pretty much moving everything over to the Soil Ninja Anthurium mix because I have found my jam with that soil. Ugh. But for now it's doing okay in this, and it will stay there for as long as it needs to, and then when it gets up potted it will probably go into that much chunkier area mix. Now I will say about this, and I'm trying to see here, does it have any pest issues? I don't think it does. I think that's just dust. For the people that have been here for a while, I have had some thrips this summer. Normally with my adansonii, it doesn't matter if I've only got one thrip, it will find the adansonii, the Monstera adansonii, and attack it. This one, less so, so that's a positive. Shall we move over to something that's not doing as positively as the other one was, which is, and I'll bring it in so you can kind of see it, so that's the newest leaf, and it ripped on the way out, which is a bit annoying, but this is the Anthurium peltigerum. For the eagle-eyed amongst yourselves, you might be able to see, I don't know if you've seen it when I put it in its pot when I first got it, and it was a much larger pot. It's a much smaller pot now, much smaller pot. And it's also lost 3 tiny baby leaves that it had at the bottom. And there's good reason for that. not a nice reason, but a good reason. It had root rot. It had a lot of root rot. So, and I knew this going in, and I kind of went against my best instincts with this one because I was getting a bit overconfident with my Anthurium skills, going, I've seen this before, it will bounce back, and I'm sure it will. I'm not stressing about that. But this plant, when I took it out of the grower's medium, which for me was way too dense, and I'm kind of glad and kind of not that I did that, because when I took it out, it's got relatively kind of medium thickness roots for an Anthurium, but they more or less all snapped off with me taking it out of the soil. I don't know why, but they like Anthurium roots generally for me tend to be relatively robust. They're not that fragile. This had very fragile roots. Half of them were already rotting by the time it got to me. And I thought it was going to pull through. Annoyingly, I shouldn't have put it in a big pot like that because it was taking way too long to dry out, and this is the problem that you get when you've got kind of heat wave days and then you go back down to normal, especially here in the UK where it's just a bit grey and miserable even in the summer. It's a grey day today and it's going to be raining all day, so I thought let's get as many videos filmed as possible because I'm not around next weekend because I've got a wedding down in Brighton. It's a festival wedding, so wish me luck. I don't know. There's no like dress code. They're like party clothes. And I'm just like, what does that mean? What are other people wearing? And then as soon, literally away for that weekend, Duke is coming with. So I'm getting a bit overconfident with Duke at the moment because after going to the Lake District and doing like a 6-hour journey up and a 6-hour journey down, and he was fine, touch a word, 3 hours down to Brighton and back shouldn't be too much of an issue. But yes, going down to Brighton, coming back on the Sunday evening. Monday's technically a work day, but I think I'm probably going to take it off just so I can finish packing and do a massive water of everything in here. And then Tuesday, I'm heading off. So Tuesday, the 3rd of September. So for everybody that keeps wishing me a good holiday, thanks. It's a bit early, but yes, 3rd of September to kind of the middle of September is when I'm away, but luckily I've got a lovely dog walker that is coming in to take care of Duke, the lizards, the chickens, the allotment, the plants. That person deserves a medal and an award. Luckily she's a planty person as well, so I've got hopes not to put any pressure to her. Even if I come back and everything doesn't survive, that's fine. She did her best and I know that. That's okay. This is the thing that this is always a chance when you go away on holiday that you come back and there might be issues. Sorry, massive tangent. But yes, this is a plant that I kind of wanted to move into a smaller pot. I wanted to see what the roots were. 90% of the roots that this plant had, 90 or 80% of the roots had gone, but there are 2 or 3 chunky, really healthy looking roots in there that seem relatively new. So I'm just like, you know what, let's just put it straight into an Anthurium soil mix from Soil Ninja, give it a smaller pot. I haven't watered it since I've kind of repotted it. I kind of want it to dry out a bit. But yeah, the peltigerum unfortunately is struggling a bit at the moment. It's not the fastest Anthurium, I will say that, but I am still enjoying it. Hopefully it will pull through. If not, is this a plant that I would try to repurchase? Yeah, 100%. Now how about a big mama jamma? how about this for a big begonia? So this is the Begonia brevirimosa subspecies Exotica. And there's a little bit of a story with this, and I don't know in which order the begonia video, because I have filmed a begonia video that's going to come out at some point in the next few weeks, where I kind of talk about my existing begonias and which ones I kind of think have got the staying power, because they're still in my collection many years later, including this one. And you can see some crisping because it was right up against the very top of the glass in the conservatory. You can kind of see it there. And that's fine, this is what happens. But to be fair, this plant, and I had a much bigger plant of this a couple of years back now, but pretty much one summer I left it to dry out more than a couple of days. It pretty much all died back, but I always have propagates of this one going. And I had maybe, can you see this little plantlet here? Maybe 3 of these, 4 of these that went into this 2 months ago. I love the brevirimosa. It just gives me so much joy. I mean, where are you ever going to find, and I'm pretty sure some of the camera might be blowing this out a bit too much and it might be coming across as a bit kind of winey red, but it's actually, it's not a bubblegum pink, but it's like a deep pink. Very, very, very cool. And for the people that like pink plants, this plant has never got enough love for what it is. Now, I do know that some people struggle with this because you can see the veins or the green bits there and the rest of it is all pink. Some people struggle to get this to go as pink, and maybe they get it a bit more deep greens. They keep asking what I do differently. I don't think I do something massively differently to everybody else, but this is always at the very top of a plant shelf in the bit of the conservatory that gets the most amount of light. So I would imagine light has something to do with this. So it does need indirect light, but the brightest indirect light you can give it, and as long as you're keeping on top of the watering, this currently is getting watered every 3 to 4 days, and it is bone dry every time I go to water it. So that tells you something. But such joy, such joy. Begonia brevirimosa subspecies Exotica. This was a mission and a half to bring down, but I will also be filming a review for this plant. Look at the newest leaf! Look at the newest leaf, and if I turn it around, you might be able to figure out what plant it is from the back of this. So this is the Philodendron lynamii. Now, trying to do this because it's a crawler. You might be able to see slightly bleachy leaves. You can see the smaller leaves that were happening there. It started sizing up, and that was the previous immediate leaf, and spoiler for the plant review, this has got spider mites, so I need to deal with that right after I stop filming all of these videos. But since giving this a trough planter, because it really does want to crawl, at least in my experience it does. I don't think this is meant to be a climber. I think this is definitely a crawler. This has done exceptionally well. So Philodendron lynamii, I am slowly falling in love with, because originally it wasn't really for me. And a quick little update for the people that care. I don't know how many people care about the Monstera adansonii Aurea that I chopped back a couple of weeks ago. It is doing a lot well. It's already, so this was, it was just a stem. It was just a stem. This was the original root mass, basically. But there is that first leaf, and it's got some variegation now. You can see it because I was saying that it's Polaroid variegation, so you might be able to see those darker bits of the green bits. And there is a new leaf that is coming in, and you might be able to see what I mean by Polaroid. You can't always tell where the variegation is going to be coming in on the leaf until it starts hardening off, and then you can start seeing the darker bits, which are going to be green, and the lighter bits, which are going to be yellow. But it is doing exceptionally well, again in a clear pot with holes, with soil ninjas and Anthurium mix, and this is sitting underneath a grow light. The good thing with my grow light situation recently is I'm getting more and more of those flat, kind of rectangular kind of grow lights, and they seem to, most of my plants seem to like it. I was always really worried because the ones that I was finding, they had a fan that was blowing air directly above, and because I have it in between shelves, I was worried that it's going to be pushing out too much hot, dry air to the plants above it, so I didn't get as many of them. However, I did find recently one that's just like a plaque, and because I don't have to crank up my grow lights because they're so close to the plant, quite as high up, it doesn't need to dissipate that much heat. And I mean, even if I touch it, it is cool to the touch. So those ones are going to be really cool, and they're cheaper than the ones with the fan, so I'm going to be buying more of those. And that one that I've got so far, my plants seem to love, so joy of joys. But and I know you're probably all going to ask me which one it is and if I can link it from Amazon. I will try, depending on editing memo and where I'm going to be when I'm going to be doing this. I'll see if I can add a link down below. If not, send me a DM. I might respond when I'm back from my holiday, and then I can tell you the link then. But I'm trying to do as much as possible in the last few remaining days before I head off. But yes, this is doing very, very well, and it's bringing me some joy. It's bringing me some joy. I mean, at the moment in time, you're going to be like, well, why is it not on a moss pole? Can you see how it's growing? So I'm waiting for it to kind of stabilize, because it's obviously wanted to grow that way. And then at that point, when it starts popping out some of the aerial roots there, I will immediately attach it to a moss pole. But this will be getting a moss pole, do not worry, because I think that's the problem I had with it last time. It did not have a moss pole and it didn't do as well. Also, for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you might have noticed there's a bit more light coming in behind me because there's something that's missing here. The reason for that being my massive Melanochyrum, according to a lot of you, and I would agree, got chopped back and composted. So what I did with that one, and I'll tell you what I did with that one, I kept some of the biggest leaves, and this was a project that was going on for a while. I kept some of the biggest leaves. I did an air layering, which kind of did okay, kind of didn't. It kept drying out a bit too much, so it got some okay roots on it. Then I chopped that bit off. I then also found one other section that had some very, very decent aerial roots. Didn't do anything to that, didn't do any air layering, didn't let them root out entirely. Cut that off, kept the very bottom growing point like I did with the Monstera Aurea that I just showed you, kept that in soil, and then put the other two cuttings, one with the air layering roots and one just with like regular hefty aerial roots, into the same soil mix. So it's a much denser plant now. There's got 3 growing points. The point like I did with my Monstera one hasn't done anything yet, but I can't see any real nodes that are showing on there. It might come up at some point, but at the moment it's not doing very much. But the other 2 bits, and I'm more impressed with the section that I cut out that wasn't air layered, but it's keeping all the leaves. Nothing has gone sideways just yet, so it's not doing anything, which I'm not expecting it to. I'm expecting it to spend the next few months rooting out, but hopefully that will be a much more manageable plant. I've also moved it so it's facing that window, so it's getting more direct-ish but lower light, if that makes sense, rather than it being this way. And that way around I can kind of handle it a bit better. So I'm not going to be able to lift it up and show you because difficultness at this particular moment in time, but that is why you're seeing a bit more space here. Now this one was a pain to get out, but I had to, because this newest leaf, I was not expecting the size up. So this is my most recent queremalense leaf, which was quite good. And I thought, I'm just like, oh, that's a good size leaf. I think that's the size that it's going to be. Wow! I'm in, and I don't want to touch it too much because this is super fragile, and it's still hardening off. Still a pain of a plant. Tiniest of pots, is in semi-hydro, is pretty much always got a water reservoir at the moment, because I realise that this is a very, very thirsty plant. But I like, OMG, I mean, head test. Look at the size of that. Sorry, the fan is also blowing because I need some air movement in this room. The queremalense. Stunned. Like, absolutely stunned. And this is still not fully hardened off. Do I think it's going to get much larger than this? I don't think so. But it might grow a tiny bit more. I mean, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. Does it have some mealybugs around the old cattle fields? Ooh, yes. Quite a few that I need to deal with. But other than that, this plant is just... I mean, like... fantastic. I mean, I was even happy with this specific leaf here that it was kind of doing this, because I'll show you the previous two leaves, because when I say fragile, this was in my care, and I don't even know what went wrong to cause this. It didn't drop or anything like that. That was the next immediate leaf. That was the next one here, and... right? So, very surprisingly cool Anthurium that I did not assume I was going to enjoy as much, considering how much grief it was giving me. Does this need more than just a janky, tiny support stick at the moment? Yes. Oh, and it's interesting because it seems to have kind of popped out from there. So you can see how small that growing point is there. Please ignore the mealybugs. And then you can kind of see how much thicker that part there is. So, yes, but I do need to deal with mealybugs. Oh, and maybe one last one before I let you go. Looky here. That is my propagation, which is finally growing some slightly larger leaves of my Veterifolium seedlings. I am so chuffed with this. It's getting some yellowy spots, and I think that might be due to light. It might be getting a bit too much light, because this is underneath a relatively bright grow light. It probably doesn't need to be there, but you can kind of see it's getting those chonky, kind of like soil, top of soil, aerial roots. Very reminiscent of Phalaenopsis. Super glad this is doing well. Out of all of my seedlings, I never really worried about the Veterifolium when it got going. I will say, and this was one that I pollinated with its own kind of DNA, really, if that makes sense. So I kept pollen from the same Veterifolium, and then when it was blooming the next time around, I pollinated it with itself. So I don't know if that's the thing that you're supposed to do or not, but it did okay. These seedlings, when they were very, very young, they had more of a propensity to not survive. But when they did survive, they were much more robust than some of my other ones that were propagated more with crystallinum type genetics. So that was interesting. But yeah, in case you were thinking about pollinating something like this. You know, when you're just like, I'm going to end up kicking myself again, because the last time I did this video, I'm just like, oh, I needed to give everybody an update on this plant. It's okay, I'll do it in the next month. And I'm pretty sure I've forgotten the plant already. Kind of looking around. What are you going to do? I think I'll wrap it here. It might be in the next month's one as well, because I'll finish videoing and I'll be like, ah! Yes. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Tell me which one surprised you, maybe which one didn't. If you had different experiences from me, do you have any of these? Are you looking to get any of these? Let me know in the comments down below. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.